ego. We're talking about ego today. So there seems to be a misconception with a lot of people. A lot of misconception nowadays. Go figure. That having an ego is a bad thing. And this is a very bad misconception because having an ego is actually a great thing. It's actually fantastic because it is what is going to make you win. It's what separates the winners from the losers is having a very high ego. Now, ego is associated a lot with men, and you hear a lot about the male ego and all this stuff. But the truth is, without the male ego, then most of what we have in today's society wouldn't be there. The male ego is what drove the Wright brothers to create flying vehicles. It's what drove Henry Ford to revolutionize the way he makes cars. It's what made William the Conqueror think that he could go and take over all of Britain and England. It's what made Alexander the Great think he could conquer most of the known world. Ego is what actually drives you to success. Everyone, they make it seem like a bad thing. It's especially about women. A lot of women will go around saying that having an ego is a bad thing. The male ego, this and that. But you realize the male ego is what keeps you safe. The male ego is what propels men to greatness and to achieve great things. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, the ego, well, first, I feel like it gets thrown around a lot. It's overused as an insult. But ego, essentially, is just how you perceive yourself. Your ego is your perception of yourself. You hear about Freud in the ego. The ego is just how you perceive yourself. It's your mind. It's you in your most you form. And then, so when people say you have a really big ego or a massive ego, that means you're very self-centered. You just think only about yourself. You're very, inwardly thought so. And that's partially true. But mainly, we're trying to talk about egoism, or an egoist. Someone who believes in egoism. And that egoism is a person who is focused on their own interest, welfare, or self-advancement. That's what an egoist is. And this, in of itself, is not a bad thing. I know you have been told by people, you should be, shy and timid and, humble and everything. No, forget all that. Because when you are competing at a very high level and you're trying to achieve something, having an ego is what helps certain people. Now, I will admit there are some people who can do well with much more freedom and being able to feel however they want, do whatever they want. That's fine too. But I'm saying for egoists like us, probably you watching this video, if you are an egoist, if you're someone who wants to achieve great things, if you have any big goals or plans that require you putting in a lot of work and being the spotlight, the center of attention, then you need to have an ego. Now, we're going to go over how to do that. So, how to have an ego. An ego is only bad for weak-minded people, because I will agree the statement, having ego, the reason it's bad is because if you have a very high perception of yourself, if you think that you're more than you are, then when you don't meet those expectations that you have for yourself, then it can be very disheartening. You'll drop really, really low, and it can be devastating. And that's bad for weak-minded people. But the way that you have an ego, it must be used. The way that you use it is by use that defeat. So whenever you have a defeat or failure or something in your life, then when you come crashing back down to that very low, then what you then do is that next time you fight harder like hell to not feel that low. There's a difference between fighting to win and fighting not to lose. If you have such a high perception of yourself, the reason why having ego is a good thing is because you will then raise your standards and rise to the occasion to actually meet that very high standard. You need to embrace ego. It's not selfish or wrong, or it's not this bad thing. Being self-centered, being conceited, I will admit, and arrogance, that is bad. But arrogance is more so like you're sort of, talking your shit, I'm this and that. But the thing is, if you actually are on that level, is it really arrogance? If you say that you're the best player in the world, are you really arrogant? Not really, because it's true. Like I said, this is where most people stop, is where the ego part is thinking that you're more than you are, thinking that you're better than you are. You need to think that you're the best. And I agree with you. That is where it is bad, because most people will just stop there and be like, well, it's bad to think you're the best. Yeah, clearly, if you're not actually the best. What you then need to do, like I said, is rise to the occasion. That is when you sort of start to prove your ego. That's going to be step 2. Step 2 is to prove your ego. Actually become the best. Become what you say you are. Actually put weight behind your words. Back up. If you can walk the walk, then talk the talk. But you actually need to be able to back up what you are saying. If you truly are the best, you will rise to that occasion. And if you mean what you say, then you actually will make it happen. If you're like, I'm going to be the best in the world at something, you're going to become the best in the world if you actually believe it and your ego is not fragile. How are you going to become the best if you're not actually the best? Do you think, for example, Ronaldo, there was some interview, I forget where it is, but he actually said that he was the best in the world before he became the best in the world. It was shortly before. When Muhammad Ali would go around and talk all, like, his talk and be like, I'm gonna beat you. Like, he was so arrogant, he was so confident, he had that ego about it because he truly believed that he was at that level. And what happened? He actually got to that level. This is what I meant before when I talked about the male ego, where the male ego, a lot of the time, then believing you could actually do something is part of the ability to actually do that thing. If you go into something thinking, oh, I can't do it, you're probably not going to be able to do it, or there's a higher chance that you're actually going to fail. But if you go into a situation believing that you are the best, like you're the most cocky, arrogant motherfucker, like, yeah, like Muhammad Ali, like, I'm going to beat him, I'm going to do all this stuff, you're more pumped up, you actually believe that you can do it, then you're going to do it. The only way to break free from mediocrity is to break the chains of slavery. And that moves on to step 3. So step 3 is going to be, if you actually are the best, you're obviously going to come up against people who are better than you. But you then do that, like I said, with the defeat, is not sort of sink back down really low. Even though, like, you might in your mind, but what you do is take that drive and challenge people better than you. If you start to challenge people that are better than you, like, if you believe that you're the best, you're going to challenge people who are better than you. So you can get a little bit better and better, and slowly you'll improve. Don't play to win. Play not to lose. There's a difference here. Because remember I said, what actually keeps the ego going, it's almost like a addiction to winning. Where what keeps it going is not feeling that defeat. Because for an egoist, defeat is the same thing as death. Which means that you are going to fight much harder to survive. You're going to fight not to die. So that's why it is much higher. It can propel you to much higher heights. Obsession is better than discipline. Obsession will win every single time. It's not a want to win, it's a need to win. The only way to prove your ego is to face people that are stronger than you. Which means that if you're in any field, like I said, let's go over it again. You just start by having an ego. And sort of just accepting the fact that you have an ego. You embrace the ego, and you need to use it the right way. Second, you need to prove it. And the way you prove it, thirdly, is by challenging people who are stronger than you and sort of feeding into your ego. So when you have a bunch of small victories, you slowly get better and better over time. And then, again, this is why I say this is the difference. Most people stop at the very first level. Where it actually gets different is by when you suffer defeat or a loss, and that's terrible, you use that to evolve and change yourself. I'm not arguing for just blind, thinking you're the best, because that's corny, that's stupid. Like, thinking you're the best when you haven't even done anything. What actually is valuable and good for your ego is by looking at yourself and actually looking at what mistakes you made, what went wrong, and sort of examine yourself and use it to evolve and to become better to crush your opponents. It is the same thing as continuous self-improvement. You want to look at your goal and then already operate as if you are the best in your field. And then you'll move like the best, so eventually you will become the best. In order to become something, you must first pretend you are it.